Every Fallout game is home to some very special weapons and armor. We normally refer to these awesome tools as uniques. Now, there are a lot of uniques, ranging from something as simple as a 32 pistol that causes fire damage, all the way to a fat man that shoots many nukes at once. The same goes for armor. Nice hats and suits to up your stats, all the way up to crazy tough power armors with serious bonuses to attributes and resistances. The real question though is, could you beat a whole game with these difficult to acquire arms and armor? Well, that's what we're going to find out today, where I pose the question, can you beat Fallout 3 with just uniques? Now, you might think, yeah, that's a pretty easy answer. A bunch of overpowered equipment, all the time? Yeah, it sounds like a breeze. The real problem is actually getting the uniques. They are oftentimes on difficult to kill enemies, or in dangerous locales. Now, it is true there are a few that can just be found lying about, but they're usually the less than stellar uniques. So with that said, let's go over the singular rule. I am not allowed to use any non-unique weapons or armor. A unique in this case being any specially named item, or an item that only has one of it in the whole game. We're also not counting anything from the DLCs, as I didn't want to go to them. That's it. Super simple. We're on very hard for the extra experience, and all forms of healing are allowed. Let's dig into it, shall we? I am birthed, and from my birth I chose a unique persona. Today I shall be called Lorp Gorgurple. Ain't no way somebody else has that name. I also chose a very unique look for myself. A face I'm sure only a mother or a cast iron frying pan could love. It would seem that my father shares my love of face frying pans. Just look at him. Now, for my specials, I didn't get too crazy. 10 into luck, 9 into intelligence, 1 into charisma, even though that's not nearly as much of a dump stat in this game, and 5 for everything else. We'll ignore the fact that I needed to kill a rad roach with a BB gun because we've all been over this before. You can't really do a challenge involving other weapons in general until we kill the rad roach, so it's okay to do for challenges. Now I'm a teenager, and when I was picking my tag skills, I made sure to choose energy weapons, medicine, and small guns. We're gonna need a relatively even stat pool for all of my combat skills this playthrough. Now, we can really get down to business. I can't really do anything in Vault 101, and I couldn't remember if I could get Butch's toothpick here, which is a unique switchblade, so I just left. I ran past everyone and made my way outside into the wasteland. I got my first level here, and I put the points into energy weapons, and I took the Swift Learner perk. Yes, I know most people think it is a pointless perk, but in a challenge setting, it can be very helpful. Fallout 3 also doesn't have very many good early level perks either, so it was this or some extra skill points. My first stop in this journey would be to Megaton, where I could get my first unique item of the playthrough. I never really thought about it until this challenge, but the Armored Vault suit is unique. This is the only place to get one, so for now we have some pretty decent armor. I also told Moira Brown that I would go to Minefield for, which I never did. Now though, I had a tricky plight. I needed a weapon, and I needed one that I could safely retrieve. I definitely had one in mind, but there was one glaring problem that would come along with it, which I will get to later. For now, I figured it would be my best bet, so I decided to make the trip to Rivet City. I bet some of you already know where I'm going with this. I worried the trip there would be difficult, and it was at the start, but swimming down the river to get to Rivet City was super easy. Before I started this quest, I made sure to pick up another quest called Stealing Independence, a quest I would need sooner rather than later. Now for the quest at hand. It is called The Replicated Man. Some dude named Zimmer wants his android back, which in turn happens to be what is called a synth in Fallout 4. Ooh, lore and stuff. Personally, when I was younger, I never understood how to do this quest, but it is very easy once you figure it out. You just have to talk to a few doctors and merchants and listen to some holotapes. If you don't have any speech skill, like me, you might have to pay a few hundred caps for some of this info. But I'm pretty good at making sure I steal some caps from Megaton whenever I start a playthrough. All of this leads us to a man named Pinkerton, who lives on the broken off portion of Rivet City. Now, it is guarded by traps and mirelurks, but they weren't a problem, thankfully. He tells you the android in question is actually Harkness, the chief of the guard in Rivet City, so I go back to him and wake up his old android memories. And if you're real nice to him, he'll give you A321's plasma rifle, which I will just be referring to as the plasma rifle for the rest of the playthrough. This thing shreds. It has great damage, a great fire rate when aimed on sight, and it's one of the best weapons in the game for sure. The big problem though, ammo. I am only level 3, which I just now got from completing the quest. Do you know how many microfusion cells you find at level 3? Not very many. You don't find many to buy either, and even if I did, they're way too expensive. Now, Harkness, being the gentleman he is, does give us a few reloads of ammo with the gun itself, but it won't last very long. I was already in need of another weapon. I suppose for now, it's time to steal the Declaration of Independence. Much easier than it sounds, considering it's located in the National Archives, which is in an area crawling with super mutants who are notoriously tanky in Fallout 3. Not to mention, I just can't stroll over there. I have to take the subway system to get there. At least while I'm down here, I got to test the plasma rifle out, and I do declare that this is a thing of beauty. The whole subway was full of raiders, which I didn't really break a sweat dealing with, but I did use a fair amount of ammo. Once I was out, I was already in the thick of it. This is one of the most super mutant heavy areas in the game, and I only had like 20 shots left. The correct choice here was to kill what I could while moving towards the National Archives and running inside before I could die. Here we meet Sydney, who would help me get the Declaration back to Abraham Washington. Yes, that is his name. Sadly, she passed away from early onset head combustion syndrome. This would net me one of the more used weapons for the early game of this run, Sydney's 10mm Ultra SMG. It has more ammo capacity and damage than a regular 10mm SMG. I got to test it out immediately on a few mutants who were left in the room, and while it was not as good as the plasma rifle, it would be a lot easier to get ammo for. Back outside, I hit level 4, and I put the points into small guns and picked the Educated perk for some extra skill points. There were a few more mutants left to kill here before I was able to get back to Megaton and buy some ammo, and another SMG to repair my new one with. Then I figured since I was here, I might as well get the main quest rolling, just enough to know that we need to go to GNR and talk to 3-Dog. So earlier I may have told a little white lie. We are in fact going to Minefield, but not for Moira, not for the mines, and not for Arkansas. Well, not yet anyway. It just so happens to be the closest target to my next unique. The way there was full of easy to deal with raiders and mildly concerning rad scorpions. Once I got there, I found the fast travel point, moved up the hill, ignored whatever the hell that was because I don't get paid enough, and finally landed at my target, a derelict power plant next to the MDPL-13 power station. Did I know what enemies were here? No, I did not. Was I surprised when they were ghouls? Also, no. Big problem though. There were a lot of ghouls, including a glowing one. I had to tank a few hits to get the weapon, but now I had something I didn't need to rely on bullets to use. Fisto, the unique power fist. It also happens to be first cousins with the Fisto we meet in New Vegas. I booked it out of there and was hoping I could fast travel away, but that was not the case. Well, I suppose it's time to put this thing to the test. I won't lie, since I had pretty much no unarmed skill and melee kind of sucks in Fallout 3 anyways, I was not too impressed, and I ended up having to finish the fight with the plasma rifle. I wanted to make sure I had more caps in my pocket, so I went to visit Silver outside of Megaton, and the funniest thing happened. She leveled me up to 5. I put the points into unarmed and picked the last rank of Swift Learner. Right now, the biggest problem I'm going to be facing is a lack of ammo and having the money to repair my equipment. Thankfully, I had a plan to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, and for that I would need to make my way to Canterbury Commons. Fisto got a pretty good workout on the way there, fisting things, and I made it pretty unscathed. I didn't plan on dealing with the Antagonizer or the Mechanist at all during this playthrough, so I just left them there to sit, and I went to Dominic and Machete Shack for one of the worst uniques in the game, Highwayman's Friend. This falls into the category of uniques that are just there to be there. That wasn't even the reason I was here though. I needed to talk to Uncle Ro about the caravans that came through here, specifically about Lucky Harris. If I funded him with some caps, he would have better stuff for sale, meaning more ammo, and he would also get a higher repair skill, which would let me keep my stuff in shape. I didn't have quite enough money for both caravan upgrades, but I could come back later. Since I didn't have much else to do except get some caps, I figured I'd actually make my way to 3-Dog now. Down in the metro station, there were a few mole rats and some ghouls, nothing too serious. Once I was up top, I hid in here until the Brotherhood came to rescue me, then I followed them for a bit, killing what few super mutants I could. Now, it was time to deal with the behemoth. I made a valid attempt at killing him with what little ammo I had, but I ran out. I threw a good punch at him, got clocked upside the head for my troubles, and decided to just let the Brotherhood finish it off. Now we could talk to Three Dog and find our dad. Oh, psych! He won't tell us until we agree to fix his radio transmitter for him, which just so happens to be in Super Mutant Central. Hooray. Before I started trouncing around Super Mutant territory like I owned the place, I needed to make an ammo run. I also needed to upgrade Lucky Harith's caravan one more time. Then I had to wait like a week and a half for him to actually show up outside of Canterbury Commons. Once he finally showed up, I was able to get some ammo and repair everything I had back to 80-ish%. Of course, I still wanted more ammo, so I decided to trek over to Tenpenny Tower. I also used the Highwayman's friend here on a Protectron, and it was pitiful, but I leveled up. Points into Unarmed, and then I took the Toughness perk for added protection. Fisto was back and fist and two and throw the whole way there. I purchased what ammo I could, did the same at Rivet City, then I went back to the National Archives since it was the closest area to my goal of the Museum of Technology. Immediately upon arrival, I had to waste the majority of my 10mm ammo on mutants. Then, for some unknown reason, I decided to take out all of the super mutants in the area using a mix of the plasma rifle and Fisto. So much for not having to buy ammo until I was done with the quest. Stocked back up, and I was finally inside the Museum of Technology. Of course, there were more mutants to deal with, but the highlight of the museum is the Terminal Mini Quest. If you answer all 3 questions correctly, which numbers shown are a prime number, you get the location to one of my favorite unique weapons, which I don't believe spawns in until you do this unmarked quest. I killed the rest of the mutants, grabbed the Virgo lunar dish, killed some more mutants, and then I leveled up. Points into repair, and I picked the Iron Fist perk. With the dish attached at the Washington Monument, I went back to Three Dog for the location of Dad. He was in Rivet City, and since I already had the location discovered, I just fast traveled there and talked with Madison Lee, but oh no, he's not here either, he's actually at the Jefferson Memorial. At least the trip wasn't wasted, as I made sure to purchase some more ammo from Flak. Before I went to the Jefferson Memorial, I think it was high time to collect my reward for completing the unmarked quest at the museum. Over to Jury Street Metro, and in the diner is the unique Chinese assault rifle, the Xuan Long Assault Rifle. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. This weapon is super useful, more damage and more ammo than a standard one, and since the ammo it uses is 5.56, we should almost always be able to use it. Of course, I always wanted more ammo for my guns, so I went to track down Lucky Harith again. This time I figured I'd stop outside of the major cities, since he can spawn there too, and I thought I found him over here by Rivet City. Boy, was I wrong. It would have been a good time to test out the assault rifle, but these Talon Company guys can do a lot of damage quickly, so I just dispatched them with the plasma rifle. Thankfully, microfusion cells are getting easier to come by. Now it was time to find Dad for real, so I made my way to the Jefferson Memorial, and to no one's great surprise, it was full of super mutants. At least they got me to level 8. The points into repair again, and then I picked the Scrounger perk, which will hopefully keep me topped up on ammo. Oh, I just love surprises, but I'm getting real tired of the game being super obvious that my dad apparently just doesn't exist anywhere, because he ain't here either. Apparently he's actually at a vault somewhere to the west of here. I made sure to clear out the rest of the mutants before I left, so I wouldn't have to later. Since ammo was always a problem, I made sure to buy even more before I left to find Dad. He was inside of the vault at Smith Casey's garage, and I was gonna have to enter the simulation to find him. I didn't really want to waste time here, so instead of playing along with Dr. Braun, I just activated the failsafe, so me and Dad could vamoose. I swear to God, the man never stops moving it seems, as he immediately needs to go back to Rivet City and talk with Dr. Lee. Sadly, I was not going to be joining him yet. I wanted to do a bit more first. I also leveled up once again and put the points into repair, which is almost maxed out now, and picked the strong back perk so I could carry more loot to sell for ammo. Speaking of loot, I wanted some more. I still had the Stealing Independence quest to do, so I went back. The mutants here, and now in general, aren't too bad to deal with, they're just bullet sponges, which does not help with my ammo count. Now, something I did forget about this quest is there is another unique item I could get in the form of Button's wig, which I will tell you now, I did not change for the rest of the playthrough. I once again went out on an ammo run, and I leveled up outside of Megaton. Level 10, max out repair, put the rest into barter. Then I picked the Here and Now perk. Please don't be mad, I just wanted more skill points. Points into barter again, and then I picked Finesse, one of the most useful perks in the game. It was time to collect my reward from Abraham Washington. It is once again time to ignore the main quest of it in search of more precious unique weapons, and I had just the one in mind. At the Museum of History, which was filled to the brim with ghouls, one can find many Abraham Lincoln trinkets, like this cool action figure I found. But no, that is not what we're here for. This is what we're here for. Lincoln's repeater. I will be damned if this weapon isn't one of the best in the game. Sadly though, 44 Magnum rounds are pretty hard to keep stocked up in general. It'll be good fun when I do get to use it though. As of right now, I've got a pretty good collection of unique weapons, so it is safe to go back to the main quest and work towards the actual suit of unique armor I would be wearing for the rest of the run. Project Purity was hopefully going to get back up and running now that we had a team together, so back to the Jefferson Memorial it was. Dad tasked me with a bunch of menial things like replacing fuses and turning on mainframes. Once I cleared the pipes down here though, that's when the Enclave decided to pay us a visit. I got to properly use Lincoln's repeater here, and it is pretty good, even without a max level gun skill. I kill some more Enclave with Xuan Long and level up to 12, points into small guns, and I picked fast metabolism so I wouldn't run out of stims so fast. It would seem that Bethesda sadly ran out of money to pay Liam Neeson to keep talking, so with that, Dad died. Bummer. Of course, I still had to care for the scientists and get them to the Citadel. There were quite a few Enclave to deal with, and something that I've never seen happened before. The scientists just stopped following me in general, and the Enclave soldiers just kept spawning. I was really worried I broke something and that they would just spawn forever. Thankfully, that was not the case. It was good for me, I suppose, as I could take their weapons and armor to sell for later, for quite a few caps too, I might add. Not to mention, I now have a serious stock of microfusion cells. More dead Enclave up ahead, and a few ghouls before we reach the Citadel. Once here, I level up to 13. I put the points into barter and pick Bloody Mess for a bit more damage to everything. I'm told now that I need to find a GECK for the Purifier to work, so I just kinda leave the main quest alone for now, but not before getting power armor training. A lot of my weapons are in pretty bad shape right now, so I managed to actually find Lucky Harith, and that price to repair my plasma rifle is crazy. I'll just have to rely on my other weapons for now. That will be a problem coming up soon, as the next place I need to go for a unique was one of the most dangerous in the game. It was time to head to Old Olney. The closest fast travel location I had to it was the place I found Fisto, and I don't think I've ever seen this before either. All of the ghouls from inside that went outside to chase me last time I was here spawned back out here instead of inside. The more you know, I guess. Yaoguai were now starting to spawn regularly, which was fine with me. Their meat gives you 10% extra damage for a short time, which is always welcome. Here we are, Old Olney, filled to the brim with deathclaws, which I am certainly not a high enough level to properly deal with. But I had a big brain strategy for this problem. Take a bunch of chems, including Jet and Nuka-Cola Quantum, then shoot the deathclaw in the leg with Lincoln's repeater until it was crippled. It worked very well, almost every time. Once they were crippled, I could just back up while shooting them with whatever I wanted, without fear they would be able to hit me. I cleared the outside, but the big prize we're looking for was on the inside, which also happened to be filled with deathclaws. It was a lot more stressful in close quarters, and there were definitely some close calls, but I managed to get what I came here for, the prototype medic power armor. This is pretty much the best armor I can get. I technically could grab the set of T-51 from a long-winded quest and dungeon, but this armor will be much easier to repair since I can repair it with normal power armor, or outcast power armor, and it pumps me full of medics regularly, which I was already doing before I got it. I'm gonna be honest with you, we are pretty decked out right now. I could beat the game pretty easily. I mean, I probably could have beat it with just the armored vault suit and the plasma rifle, but that would have been boring. But before I decide to beat the game, there are still a few particular weapons I wanted, which would really round out the collection. I gotta get me some big guns, and the first one on my radar took me to Grey Ditch. I ignored Brian Wilkes as best I could, and made my way into the Marigold Metro Station. This would be a quick pit stop, just so we could reach Falls Church. I helped the Brotherhood kill a few mutants while I was there, and went right into the next metro station, which was the Falls Church / Mason District Metro. Some raiders followed me here, which was a good thing, as they helped me reach level 14. Points into big guns, and I picked size matters for even more points into big guns. I'm probably going to stop talking about levels now, as my build is pretty much done at this point. Deeper in, there were a lot of ghouls wandering about, but they weren't a problem, and I was too low a level for a feral ghoul reaver to show up yet. Thank God for that. Just kidding. Here's one at the end of the dungeon just to make my life hell. I really want to know who at Bethesda decided that the Ghoul Reaper, the Super Mutant Overlord, and the Albino Rad Scorpion should be walking tanks with crazy damage potential. Since I was right next to the unique I wanted, I grabbed it before the fighting really started, so I had an extra weapon to work with. Behold, Burnmaster, the unique flamer. It made short work of the ghouls, including the Reaver, but it definitely takes a sizable chunk of ammo. And right now, flamer fuel is pretty scarce. There was a pretty good chunk of ammo in the boxes right next to where I got it, but that didn't matter much. As soon as I left the metro, I was attacked by Talon Company and super mutants. A quick way to run out of ammo for sure. Speaking of ammo, it was time for yet another stock up before I went to grab what would pretty much be the last unique I'd actually end up using. Back to the power station where the ghouls are waiting for me, and I start making my way west. On the way, I ran into some Enclave soldiers, and some Yaogwai and giant rad scorpions, but it wasn't too bad, and I finally made my way to the target, the deathclaws sanctuary. There were a few to deal with outside, and just like the last time, I crippled their legs to make the fight easier, but I was almost out of 44 Magnum ammo. I knew I would need some, so I went on a small shopping trip to stock back up. I didn't have much money left now, so it was time to get a little sidetracked. The best way to make easy money in Fallout 3 is by killing the Enclave and selling their gear. Of course, I didn't have any to kill, and I didn't want to trudge around the wasteland waiting for them to attack me, so I tried something fun. I went back to the Jefferson Memorial, which now had a big shield around it to stop me from getting in. Of course, if you try hard enough in a Bethesda game, you can go anywhere. I went up to this ramp here, jumped a few times, and got in really easily. I think I got lucky because it did not work very well the next time I tried. There were a few Enclave outside for me to deal with, but none inside. This would have to do, I suppose. I stopped back at the Citadel to repair a few of my items, and then went back to the Deathclaw Sanctuary. I guess enough time had passed, and the Enclave in the area respawned, along with the Deathclaws I killed. This was nice for me, since I always needed more caps, and they kept each other occupied for the most part. Inside of the sanctuary, as the name suggests, were more Deathclaws, and there were quite a few of them too. They liked to hide behind rocks out in the open sections and attempt to take me by surprise. The Burnmaster came in pretty clutch towards the end of the cave, and my reward for a bunch of dead Deathclaws was Vengeance, the unique gatling laser. This has one of the highest DPS in the game, and I had been stocking up on ammo for it for quite some time. Now, it's back to the main quest. Back at the Citadel, I figured out which vault had the GECK in it and made my way there. I also managed to find some alien blaster cells, which were useless to me in this playthrough. Of course, it is a unique weapon, but I would either need to beat the Mothership Zeta DLC, or get Dogmeat to fetch it for me. Not to mention, the Fire Lance is in the game, which is the unique version of that, so I couldn't really use the alien blaster if I wanted to. Oh well, maybe another time. There also happened to be a bunch of Enclave here to fight me, which didn't last long with my many powerful weapons. After much walking, I finally made it to Little Lamplight. Now, it is true that I could have just save-scummed my way to get into here, but the actual quest to get in would lead me to one of the last acquired uniques in the playthrough, and it was one I haven't used in a very long time, so it was time to go to Paradise Falls and rescue MacCready's friends. Here, I would be asked to gather special slaves for entry, and that required the Mesmetron. Now, it is true that this gun technically has a unique version of it that is located in Point Lookout. And as I said when the video started, I was not counting the DLC weapons in the pool, so this was perfectly fine to use. The slaves we needed were Arkansas, Flack, Red, and Susan Lancaster. Arkansas was easy. I just ran in the minefield, zapped the old man in the face, and slapped the collar on him. I could technically get into Paradise Falls with just one slave captured, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun here. The next stop was Susan Lancaster, and I expected the guards of Tenpenny Tower to, maybe do something to stop me, but no. They just let me do it. Red was next on the list, and I technically had to do part of a quest to retrieve her. Not that it was a very hard quest with all the weapons I have at my disposal. Nothing short of Liberty Prime could really stop me at this point. I had to kill some mutants, and then I was able to free Red from her confinement, just so I could reconfine her. Then I had the audacity to rescue Shorty for the mission and return him to Big Town. Last was Flack over in Rivet City, and when I slapped the collar on him, the guards actually shot me this time, so I had to make a quick getaway in the water. Done and dusted, I felt I could now enter Paradise Falls. You'd think that I'd just start blasting the raiders here for more experience and loot, but I kinda didn't feel like it. I just bought MacCready's friend's freedom and took them back to Little Lamplight. I also may have lied about the Mesbotron being the last unique weapon. I mean, I was already in Little Lamplight, I just had to get the Weza Waifu from Biwi. I mean, it would be wrong of me not to, right? Now it was time to go through Murder Pass, which had a sizable amount of super mutants in it. Not a problem, until we got to the end when they spawned a super mutant overlord on me. So many bullets went into this guy, and it wasn't making much of a dent. Thankfully, I'm still a low enough level to where they're not super common. I was finally in Vault 87, and I could make my way to the GECK. Not without killing a substantial amount of mutants, but I digress. I made sure to free Fox from his cage to help me, and I once again lied. Since when Fox is following you, you can just trade him for his Super Sludge, which is a unique. I never used it, but now I had it. Of course, there were some more mutants to kill, but we finally made it to the GECK. Fox retrieved it for me, and I was on my way to get kidnapped by the Enclave. This would be a pretty good spot for me to get the last caps I needed for repairs and ammo before the big fight. Many Enclave here fell to my weapons, and I was made a rich man indeed. Soon enough, I was talking with the president, and our conversation ended when I made him initiate the self-destruct sequence. I made like a tree and got the hell out of there, and boom. It was now time for the final push to Project Purity with Liberty Prime. The plan for this was pretty much to let Liberty Prime do all the work, and it worked pretty well until about halfway through. I got blown up, and I had to start the walk all over. I didn't really feel like following Liberty Prime again, so I tried to find a gap in the fence to just force my way into the purifier, like I did last time. But like I said, I was pretty lucky when I got it to work that time, because it sure as hell didn't work now. I finally just settled on following Liberty Prime in the end, but far enough away to avoid getting exploded too bad. Once we were inside the purifier, I got murked by some Enclave, since I didn't actually go out and repair my armor before the fight. More carefully this time, I managed to take out the remaining Enclave, but I was now also out of stim packs. It wouldn't be too much of a problem though, as there were only 2 soldiers with Colonel Autumn in the last room, and we handled them pretty easily. I chose to turn the purifier on, and there you have it. Yes, you can beat Fallout 3 with just unique equipment. Once the run starts to get off the ground, it isn't too difficult. I'd say the hardest part is just keeping your gear repaired and staying stocked up on ammo, since most of the time, the gear was pretty expensive to repair, which meant I never had a lot of caps to spend on ammo in the first place. All in all, a fun, simple run that I highly recommend you try for yourselves. And don't forget that if you enjoyed the challenge, like the video and subscribe, it helps me out a lot. Leave your comments about what challenges I should try in the future, or join the Discord and put them in our challenge suggestion channel, which I will always be able to see. And stay tuned, as next week I ask the question, can you beat Fallout 1 without taking any damage? As usual, friends, until next time, stay safe out there, and peace out.